All right, what is going on, guys? Hopefully, and these always start earlier than I think. Um, when like I click the live, it's like before I even click live, it's going. But that said, there's a lot to talk about today, so I want to dive into all of that here. And Tesla's pushing up. Tesla's just look at it. What is that? Tesla just had a crazy kind of move, consolidated all day, popped up. So we got that to talk about. We got penny stocks to talk about. Want to dive into that? We had some action this morning, at least on one of my swings. That was pretty nice, but also not. So I'll explain what I did there. Talk about the plans on that one because it's one that I've been kind of holding for a while, but it's like the third time I've been able to kind of take some profits and then ideally we buy this thing lower with the shares we sold today, and then we do it all over again. I think we got a bigger move in store still. So we'll talk about that stock as well. So Tesla, crazy little action here. We'll see. I was still looking, to be honest, for Tesla. I sold my swing. I had a little swing going in this account from like the 790s for a breakout up over 800, and I sold it up around 8 something. I thought we'd get a bigger move faster. We didn't, so I was like, I don't really need to hold this overnight, but it was bigger than usual because, I mean, Tesla, we're talking about a move on this thing of from where I was in, of like, only a couple percent. So it didn't really move much. So I had to have like a decent size, much larger than a usual, small cap or penny stock swing. So we'll talk about that. Wish I think is interesting because we got the final. I mean, I think it's probably due soon. I think it's due at some point very soon. But I think we had a final flush. Was that last week? Where it pulled under 5 and now it's holding up over 5. So if it can hold over 5, I think it's a decent risk reward entry right here. Unfortunately, right, I think I was playing it back in here as it was like holding 6. And I was like, okay, it fell below 6. I got out for that, but it's potentially if I was still in, it could be an ad zone, or now, if I'm looking at it now fresh, it's like, it's actually not a bad spot. If it can start to curl from here, I think it can make a nice run. I think we can see up towards that 9 level. I think $9 is where I would be ideally looking at on Wish. So it's currently, if it holds 5, I like it, but it can easily, just be careful because, it could easily continue that downtrend. But my speculation is that I think we're bottoming out on a lot of names that have been beaten down. So a lot of beaten down names, whether it's for good reason, for not good reason. I think we're kind of getting to that point where it's like, okay, the sellers are getting a little exhausted here. So we'll talk about that. Well, there's a lot to talk about, in terms of other stocks where that came from. So I kind of have this range on Wish that I'm looking at. Let me see if I can. Let me get one of these lines out of the way. Adjust that right there, and yeah, those are kind of my levels to watch. So if it gets back up over 6. 760 target, and then up towards that 875 target, and then 9 plus I would have on Wish would be the targets, or at least areas if I was in right now to sell. I would be looking at trim something along those lines. I don't hold any AMC, but AMC was doing well today. Let's take a look at it. Let's see, where is she? 3750. It was popping at one point, but it's consolidating. Look at this. AMC is interesting because it's just kind of sitting flat, holding like 35. And it's consolidating for a little bit. I think I was looking at one point today. Yeah, I had a nice little push in the, after the morning kind of dip at the open. But overall, though, it's still, only up like 1.5%, which is not much, or almost 2%, which isn't much on AMC's, history to say. The volume is just look at the volume. It's just been steadily draining out slowly. So you need to you got to get something to change. So it's got to pop up back over this 38, 30. AMC over 40, I think, would be kind of the mental switch. It gets people excited for it again. So it's got to get back up over 40, I would say, and hold over 40, ideally, for this to continue momentum. And the volume has got to come in. So we'll see if people start jumping on board. But I think what's great news is that we have a WTRH waiter. Had a really nice day up. It was up over 50% at one point. Look at this chart, though. It got crushed ever since March, right? JSPR, this is one that's popping on up, going kind of wild today. So we got some good action across a lot of stocks. We've got, 100+% gainer. We got a 40%er. We got a couple 30s, some 20s. I mean, we got a decent list, on the board here across, top gainers. So it's something we haven't really seen, to be honest, too much in recent weeks, but it's a good sign. I think we're going to, compared to last week was like super slow. At least I felt across, a lot of penny stocks, a lot of small caps. So, Let's take a look at how IWM is doing. So the markets are all up. Dow is even, but everything else. SPY is up 0.25%. NASDAQ's up a little over a half. What's IWM? So small caps, and we're pretty much even. So we're just continuing the chop, continuing that, really that consolidation for IWM, which is interesting to see because at some point we're going to break out to the upside. Now, here's the thing, right? You can say to yourself, which way do you go? Do you go up or do you go down, right? Do we drop this thing down to the downside? And one would say, you know what? There's a risk of it coming down after the crazy run we had this past year and all that stuff. But then you also look back to the left, and we've had, wild swings on IWM. Now, these are overall market pullbacks when this thing came down pretty hard. So understand that. Now, in the most recent market pullback, which ultimately wasn't that big percentage-wise, if you look at the grand scheme of things and you broaden things out to the past, let's say 5 years, that we saw the past month and a half or so, IWM has kind of held up pretty well. But again, if you go back over time, where is IWM rigged to? It's just like, like SPY, it's just like everything else. It's essentially rigged to the upside over the long term. So, it's been consolidating for quite some time. If I had to take a guess, I wouldn't want to be the one guessing this thing breaks to the downside this way. I would say that probability wise, we break to the upside, and we're also coming into a historically strong time of year for small caps, which is in November. So we'll see. But it's it's definitely very fair that we consolidated for the 8 months, whatever it's been after the run we had, end of last year into early this year. So it is what it is. But I think there's a lot of stocks that have gotten beaten down to a pulp. So I want to talk about some of those. DATS had a nasty flush. It was funny. I stupidly was in DATS just for like a trade this morning. So I was like, okay, here's the daily chart. I was like, oh, I saw this thing pushing up, and I was like, okay, we look like we're going to break over this 1850, probably go to $20. So I grabbed it at $16, right? And I immediately put a stop loss on it. Let's go and let me zoom into this. I grabbed it. Look at this horrible, chart. I grabbed it at 16, right? And it happened to be like literally like 5 minutes before this candle right here, these couple candles. And I put a stop loss below, I put it at 1523. So my stop loss was essentially below the morning lows of pre-market. And I got filled at 1428. So I was like, well, what? Like it was like, what are you talking? I put a stop loss there to risk, right? 75 cents to the downside from where it was, and ended up losing $1.75. I was just absolutely pissed. Although that said, we'll see if it kind of holds up here. This is kind of an area that I had, on the chart that we consolidated a couple of times or for a couple of days back at the beginning of the month. So if it holds up around this $11 level, it could be a nice, support for now. Although after today's action, I'm probably not a huge fan of it. I just, it looks similar to kind of what we saw back on the 5th. So maybe it takes a couple of days for this to kind of iron out. And then it may have, if it holds up, then it's an idea for a run. But I would probably personally, I'm not going to mess with it. And I was only messing with it for a day trade because it had the momentum. And I was like, hey, this might go to $20 today. And I want to be there for it. If I can get a move from 16 to 20. So I'll take a $4 win risking 75 cents. So I'll take that. Only to be, ended up risking $1.75, which I didn't intend to do. But the stop loss, something happened. I don't know. I probably should look into that further. But let me see. Let's see. Good to see you too. We are gonna compare GME and AMC. Let's see. GME. If we go to the daily on it, it's starting to curl right on this bad boy. The question that I have, right, is that this been consolidating for so long, right? GME kind of and AMC, they've had their ups and downs along the way, but they've kind of both been consolidating for a while. So I'm curious if we do see small caps, if we do see momentum plays and we see stuff picking back up, are these going to be leading the pack, or are they going to are people going to just go to something else and be like, I don't want to wait any longer? I'm thoroughly interested in that aspect. So we'll see. They've been holding up. The longer they hold up, the better chance that they can push up to the upside and squeeze out. So I don't think it's out of the question that we see a bigger move in the end of the year. I don't know how big those moves are going to be, but let's see. New York City here, BTCM. Let's take a look. Let us take a look. Interesting. So it's at the 50 SMA. Last time it hit this level, it bounced. The 50 SMA, right? So It's bounced a couple times. I would give it down to, it looks like the lows. So you're going to want to, this is a Bitcoin play, right? So you probably want to be paying attention to obviously what Bitcoin's doing. But it hasn't really made a big run. It's, with the move in crypto. So I want to look at that too. BTC, let's take a look at Bitcoin. I mean, I'm bullish on it. It looks strong. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this weekend we take a shot at that 60,000 and more. I think it's going to be for a lot of these mining plays outside of the main plays like the Maras. Let's go to Mara. It's not. I mean, it's solid. What about Riot? Riot was lagging last time I remember checking. Riot was lagging Mara pretty big. Yeah, Riot is lagging Mara massively. So there could be an opportunity here. And some of those stocks that are kind of seemingly lagging seems like an opportunity in my eyes if Bitcoin keeps pushing on up. I think. Let's see. CEI, let's take a look at that. Because it's got to hold this level for now, this 140-ish area. It's gotten a lot less volume. Volume has faded out. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing comes back down to the $1 range. I really wouldn't be surprised. Personally, if it can hold this 140, then it could easily bounce and go for a move up. But if it can't hold this level, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing is down lower, into the lower ones pretty quick by the end of the week. Especially with the volume. The volume doesn't come back in. The volume keeps fading on out. It's an easy target to take this thing down for shorts, I think. That said, right, could trap more shorts in for a bigger move at some point. But the timing is key. BTCM, I think it's going to be, I honestly think it's a good play with Bitcoin continuing higher. So, if you're bullish on Bitcoin, I would stay in. Obviously, if the company comes out with some news that's negative or something that could change things, but if it holds up here, I mean, it's in a decent spot. The 50 SMA right now is a decent bounce zone. It's bounced a couple times in the past. We're curling on up. You can even draw a trend. Looks like we can even draw a trend line here. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, there you go. So you can draw your trend line from that point at the bottom we saw back in July. Holds that trend line. We're looking fine, I think on it. The one stock that I want to talk about from today was this one. I got a lot of action on this chart. So there's a lot of orders currently, positions, like all this stuff going on. It was NSPR. So it was actually, I think if not my biggest, it was my second biggest position. Let me just adjust this chart here. My second biggest position was this guy. And we had a nice little pop. And so with these penny stocks, I'm looking for these spikes. That's what I'm playing it for, right? A lot of these moves never really hold up very, very long unless you're in a seasonally strong period, like we saw, or abnormally strong period like we saw last year. So this thing came down under 4. Under 4, in my opinion, is the loading zone. You're trading a stock. This stock is trading below cash value. They have more cash on the balance sheet as of last earnings, I believe, than their market cap, right? They've also got some products, and they had some news from this morning. If I go back, let's see if I can pull that news up really quick. FinViz. Let me go to NSPR. Here it is. They received reimbursement approval for CGuard system for the French National Authority for Health. So let's see. I was looking at this. This is not bad news. This is good news. This is not bad news. So the stock popped up and it came right back down. So it was up, I think, at the highs, like maybe 25% off of yesterday. So it wasn't anything crazy. I mean, I'm looking for, ideally on any of my swings, I want to see at least 25% potential, and that's what I'm looking to take my profits. Now, in this case, we hit it briefly. I waited for the market to open, and the market opened, and it kind of sold off, tried to pop, and then got rejected again, and then started just kind of selling off. Maybe it pushes up at the end of the day. I don't really care. I had, I think, I forget how much I had exactly, but what I've done now is I used a day like today to sell some covered calls. So I sold covered calls super cheap, just on like 100 or maybe 200 shares. I sold 2 covered calls for the October 15th expiration $5 strike. So essentially, I see that as free money. If this stock just kind of sits down below 5 the rest of the week, even if it goes under 4, that was free money to get paid to sell those covered calls, and that's it. Then I sold a couple more covered calls out for November, mid-November expiration, $5 as well. But those were juicier. Those actually, if I pull them up, I have them on the left-hand side, I believe. Where are they? Here they are. They're currently trading between 40. I have 3. I have an average. I sold them at like 40, I think 50 cents. I sold a couple at 45 and some at 50. So I have an average on those, like just between 45 and 50. So it's trading right here around this range. What that essentially means in my eyes here is that, let's say I sold 3 of them at 50. I'm essentially capping my gains on 300 shares, 100 shares per covered call that I sell at $5. So in this case on NSPR, if it's trading over 5 by November 5th, by November 19th, which is the expiration, they will sell my shares at 5, and that's it. I kept the premium that I sold the covered calls for. So that's kind of the advantage that you have when you have a lot of shares of some of these stocks that have options. And the only really good time to do this is when you have a day where the stock gets news or it's green, or it's pretty green or the market's super green, because then there's usually more there's more activity and you can get a juicier premium. So I sold them. So in my eyes here, it's $150 free dollars. Now, let's say NSPR kind of goes back down and doesn't do anything for a month and they expire worthless. Well, they expire worthless and I got paid $150 to hold it. That's it. Which I like to play fundamentally anyway for the next couple months. So I don't really care if it goes lower unless there's an offering or there's some bad news. Then that changes everything and we'll have to reassess then. But I don't believe that's going to happen, at least in the next month and a half. So we'll see. But I didn't do that on all my shares. So this way, if NSPR goes wild, and let's say it goes to, like $6. So let's say it goes, I would think like $6 is where I have my next target. I have a sell for some there at $6. If it goes wild, I still will have shares to capitalize on that gain, but I was going to set a limit order anyway. So if I'm going to set a limit order to take profits at 5 anyway, which is what I was targeting as my first target, which we didn't quite hit today. So I took some shares off and then I did these covered calls. Then great. Like I get paid $150 to sell 300 shares at an area that I was going to sell the shares anyway. So why not get paid more to do it? So that's kind of the idea. Which is why I love covered calls. On certain occasions, it's not going to work for every stock, especially penny stocks. It's really, it's tough to do. But in this case, it kind of works out. So that's the plan there. And I'll be buying more. I have an order already here for if it goes under 4, I'll be getting slowly accumulating, 100 shares at a time if it kind of dips down below. And it has a support here at 360. I don't think it's going to go much below that level. And sometimes it just takes, a day like today or some news like this to get things going, to get people excited to say, oh, wait a second, this stock is trading below cash value. Let me take a look at this. And then people start following in, volume comes in, and next thing you know, it starts to kind of get momentum. Momentum builds. Oh, it's a low float stock too? This thing can move. And next thing you know, it's the next, whatever stock. It's the next JSPR. It's the next, hot stock that everybody's, day trading for fun. And now, I'm already out, but everyone else can trade this thing up to whatever they want to do. And, risk whatever they want to risk, because at that point it's not worth the risk. Down here it is, but up over 5, over 6 is not worth the risk in my eyes. But that's that. So what else do we have? I want to go back to Tesla, see what Tesla's doing right now. It's at 810. It's really been interesting. It hasn't really it hasn't just gone. It hasn't just said like, okay, it's time to go. And for Tesla, what I'm looking at is I'm looking for like a 825 to 850 type of extension. And then, that's where I think you'll see profit taking. But we're getting, slow and steady on Tesla front. We're getting up towards that 900. We're getting up towards those all-time highs. And this is going to be a fun one to watch at the end of the year. I have a good chunk of it in the IRA. So letting it ride, letting it do its thing for now. Any has been a great one too. We talked about this one a couple times in recent Saturday videos, which if you guys are new or not familiar, we talk about, we go over at least market updates, penny stocks I'm watching or small caps I'm watching, low floats and stuff like that, and then we also talk about current portfolio updates, what I'm holding, why, what I did, and making moves. I also used today as an opportunity to add to my airline position where I at least consolidated. So what I did today was I go to Save. So this is Spirit Airlines. Save is the ticker symbol, Spirit Air. So look at Spirit. Let's zoom out a little bit more. Let me adjust this. So Spirit had a pretty nasty day. A lot of airlines had a nasty day today. Fell below the 50 SMA. Kind of looks kind of gross, but they got some good support here in the lower 20s, mid to low 20s. So I bought, what I decided to do is I sold. I had some calls going out to the end of this year, around the $20 strike price. I got rid of that for like a 5 or 6% loss. Technically was what it was. And then I essentially used the money from that contract and I bought another one of the contracts that go out to January 2023. So I gave myself an extra, year plus, an extra, year and a couple months on those. So the way that I see the airlines right now, personally, I like these as set and forget. Either you can buy shares or you can buy the Jets ETF. So here's Jets. I'll pull it up. Jets ETF, same idea. Or you can go ahead and with a couple of different names. You can go with 2 kind of names to kind of diversify yourself, or even 3 names to diversify yourself. But either buy shares, or I would recommend for a more percentage gains, some in the money calls. So go down. Let's say for example let's say I was going to do Jets. Let's say I do Jets. I would be buying like the $20 calls. So we're $3.50 above that. I don't think we're going to go below 20 anytime soon, unless there's some crazy wild news, and who knows, we'll see. That could be a really good buying opportunity, I would think. But let's say I go out here to, let's go to 2023. Let's find the 2023s. January 20, you can even go to 2024. Let's say I go January 2023, 460 days away. I'd go ahead and I'd buy these $20 calls. They're trading for $5. So essentially, right, Jets needs to be over 25, over 26 bucks by the expiration for you to make money. Ideally, it's got to be like around 26 plus for you to make some money. But if Jets goes to 30, those calls are worth 10. Those calls double. If Jets goes to 30, those calls double. So let's look at the reality of that. That is potentially a little bit of a stretch, 30, but we were just trading up here towards 29 a few months ago before, I guess, a lot of the Delta scares and whatever, right? So you can look for a 20% gain on the stock or on the shares, the ETF, or, if we got up to that level again, or got up to that 29 to 30 range in the next year, if we ever hit that point, you can make 100% on your options. Or if we don't get there and you get up to like, let's say 28, 29, 27, you're still going to do like 50% on those options. So, the way I see these airline plays is that, they're going to be volatile at least a little bit right now and might be a little bit more potential red to buy, but you could be setting yourself up for a solid, 20 to 50% gains. I would say on the low end, if depending on how you play. If you play shares, you're looking for probably like 20% gains, a little bit lower risk. If you're playing the options, in the money options, you're probably looking at like, lower end targets there will probably be like 50% gains. But upside could be more than 100% gains depending upon the option contracts and depending upon what stock or, ETF you buy and how this stuff moves in the next year. So, and travel, I guess, obviously we'll have to see. But my anticipation is it comes back pretty strong, and I think it's going to be very strong in the coming years after this. So even go out further, and you can probably do even better, to be honest, if you play the Jets ETF and go up to 2024. Sounds, as wild as that sounds, it might even be a better opportunity to make more money on that position and kind of have a stress-free trade. That's the idea. RDW Pop. I feel like I saw that name before. What is RDW? Why do I feel like I've been seeing this name? Oh yeah, it's a sympathy play to JSPR, right? Or at least somewhat of a sympathy play. Very similar chart setup pushing into the close. This could be a nice mover. Where'd the highs? This thing hit up to over 13. Yeah, over 13.34 is interesting. This thing can go to like 15 plus. Possibly into tomorrow. We'll see. What's the market cap? 700 mil float. Only 23 million float, free float. Seems pretty low, so this could be a nice mover. So we'll see. Let's take a look at the market as we're about to close in like 7 minutes. What's the market doing? So we had an interesting day. We did look kind of gross earlier today, I guess. We did. We were down a little bit. We look kind of gross, and now we're kind of trying to push back up. So this is, if we can close up here over 435, it's probably a good sign into tomorrow. If we close over 435 on that. Now, we came back, we filled this gap back down. We got some good support here in the upper 20s, upper 420s. My guess is we probably hold these levels and eventually push higher in the coming weeks, if I had to guess. I mean, pretty decent pullback. I want to see a consolidation. And what do we kind of get in the past, couple of weeks? We're pretty much consolidating. I mean, from this period, you go back about almost a month ago now, we're like at the same price we were about a month ago on SPY. So we haven't really made moves. We pulled back a decent bit from the all-time highs to the lows, the relative lows that we saw here at the beginning of the month. But honestly, we're kind of doing its thing and consolidating. It's kind of how we somewhat expected after the crazy run. We need a period to cool off, and we had a little pullback, a little bit of a scare. Oh my! And now all of a sudden everyone's freaking out. Everyone's the bear, and when everybody starts becoming a bear, then we start kind of slowly grinding our way back on up. It seems like that's what's happening. Let me see what I got over here. Yeah. Outside of that, take a look at other positions that I have right here. So BW, I think, is really good. Look at this chart. We're trying to bottom out here at the $6. Really nice area of support down around 6. So we'll let that one do its thing. And I'm looking for well over 7 into the end of the year. So this is one of those I'm going to let this one ride. Now, if it closes below 6 and holds below 6 for 1 or 2 days, I'll be out. But if it doesn't, I like this one to ride this one up for a bigger move. We're seeing a lot across the board. We're seeing a lot of these final flush plays is what I've been saying. Look at charge point. This is kind of wild. We'll see how how this goes over the coming weeks and months, I think. But I think this is hilarious. We were looking at this one a couple weeks back on one of the streams, and we're like, okay, this is bottoming out here. I was like, oh, this looks really nice. So right, it was like right under 20, right around $20. And then it pushed up, hit up to like 21.50. I was like, oh, there it goes. That was a really good area of support. Bounced nice. Then what did it do? It broke below the support that it held, like 5 times over the past couple of months, went down to 1760, and now it's back at 20, like 3 days later. And in this span, it's not like, it went down there when the market was like super red. The market was choppy, the market was red, but it pulled back, and then the market's been choppy and been kind of red as it's pushed higher, which is kind of funny. So you kind of can see, my speculation here is this thing might go to $25 in the coming weeks. And that was your kind of, this period right here was your opportunity to kind of freak out the retail traders, freak people out, get people to hit their stop loss as it fell under $20. And then it was an all-you-can-eat buffet for the big money for those who wanted to load. Notice the volume here as it sold off. People were panicking, hitting their stop losses, and somebody was probably buying that up. And then now, they're going to be up nice in the coming weeks. And could be a lot bigger of a play, longer term, but, it's kind of what I'm noticing, at least across the board. A lot of stocks, very similar. This is charge point. You go to BLNK, kind of a similar sympathy play, somewhat of the same idea here, kind of pulled, and now it's, curling back on up on that. So it's just funny to see some of these things. It's funny to watch. This UAVS is one that I've been looking at now today. Got some news, drone delivered a lung or something like that. Some crazy, which is cool. Had a decent volume spike. So I'm looking at this saying to myself, let's go to the 5-minute chart. Look at this. Look at around like noon. When that tweet or press release, whatever that happened, whenever that tweet about the drone delivering a lung, that was a 686,000. Well, let's go to the 1-minute chart. See how many shares were bought within a 1-minute span there. In a 1-minute span, around that same exact time, which happened to be, let's see, 11:57. I think is that Central Time? No, 11:57 Eastern Time. This thing gets a 460,000 share volume candle. So, over 500, and in a span of like 3 minutes, over 500,000 shares were bought, were exchanged. And I'm curious to see. We didn't see this thing immediately dump, which tells me that this wasn't just some guy slapping it for a day trade off that little news line that came out. This is more of like somebody could have used that piece of news to just slap this thing and load up for a possible bigger move. That's what you kind of see that happen a lot. You see sometimes, you'll notice a lot of headlines, a lot of news is kind of the cover for what goes on behind the scenes. So sometimes the market will just keep going higher, and you'll think like, okay, why is it going higher? How can it keep going higher? Then you'll get a PR of, what was that, Evergrande in China, And it's like, does that really matter? Like, how much is that going to affect us? Is the reality of that situation actually that bad? What's going to happen? Are they going to get bailed out? All these things, like when you start unpacking it, should the market have pulled back to the degree that it did on that day? And was it just for that? I don't know if it was just for that, but they potentially like use headlines like that to work work what's going on behind the scenes on either stocks or the overall markets just in general. I think you see a lot of money flowing and a lot of money switching hands and using headlines to kind of mask some manipulation, whatever you want to call it, right? The bigger moves that ultimately would be like, wait, why did that just randomly happen today? And it's like, for no explanation. Well, the headlines are what's going to mask that, right? FAMI, I think, is going to be decent. I think it's going to set up for another run. I'm going to see how this plays out, but it's on my watch list. If it holds up here in the 30s, I mean, I might take a shot at it. It's kind of just consolidating right now, but it had a decent run off the lows. I think we can see a bigger move, to be honest. I think we can, as crazy as it sounds, I think we can get a move up to 80 cents, which would fill this gap fully. Let's do the math here. What is that? That would be about 120% move from where we're at right now. I think a move to that level, 80 cents, then let them do an offering, reverse stock split, whatever, reset the chart, all that stuff. Market's now closed. We'll dive into that in just 1 second. I think what their probably reality is they need a pump, either get some news or, this volume holds up and does well, pushes this thing up to 80 cents. Everyone's going to be like, oh, dollar. Maybe it goes more. Who knows? Maybe it calls a Ccxi. I don't know. And they use that opportunity to do an offering, raise some capital, then eventually reverse stock split. And you guys know the deal. Same story with a lot of these penny stocks. Same rotation, same thing. Same deal. So that's what I'm at least expecting on that by the end of this year into next year. And it's going to take some months for that process to play out, but that's the idea. Okay, so SPY. What did we do? Today we closed at over 435. Pretty nice close. We finished up 0.37%. So there you go. We have the Dow closing just barely green. So it dipped a little bit, closed green, which is good, I guess. And it closed up just over 0.05%. The NASDAQ, the NASDAQ had a nice little green day. Best performing, index out of all the three here, the S&P, the Dow, and the NASDAQ, up almost 0.75%. So there you go. Now, in terms of top gainers, we had JSPR up 105%. Wader Holdings, WTRH, had a nice close. Look at this. A nice little potential short covering into the close. So this is an interesting one to watch. I know a lot of people who like this one a good bit. And it was on my radar. I just never took it, took a closer look at it. And it fell below 1. It fell below 1. I kind of lost sight. I thought it would maybe hold 1 and it didn't. And then I was like, we'll see. But yeah, let's take a look at after hours. We'll go a little bit in after hours here, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. Thoughts on Ccxi? Let's take a peek at it. It's a wild. This is kind of wild in my eyes, because this thing is like had a crazy gap, right? Held up, and now it's holding up. If it can hold up, let's say over like 35, could be a good. For me, this doesn't interest me unless I have a fundamental, like, oh, I love this thing fundamentally, this, that, this, here's why. Personally, I don't have enough, behind the scenes information for you there in terms of what I've, looked into. But I personally wouldn't like it up here. But if it holds 35, I'd say it's fine. Maybe this thing could dip down and, bounce a little bit. But it's this gap for shorts is like, oof, we want to fill this gap. And this is going to be some nice, move down. Now, I'm not sure we're going to get down there, but it may be a longer term kind of bleed, or may eventually just be kind of a gap and slow grinder. One of the craziest things is the AFRM chart is how this thing has so many gaps, and every time it looked like it wanted to come back down and slowly start filling this gap back down on its moves back after, they got some good news. It seems it gets caught back up and brought back to the upside. Now it just hit all-time highs. Today it hit all-time highs, 150.17. You need this thing to get up over that level and hold. I want to at least take a look at this chart right now on a firm. Okay. Now look at this. Now they got some good news and everything. They had a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes here. They had Apple, they had Amazon, they have Walmart integrations. They got some good news at some big companies. So I get it, right? But look at Penn National Gaming. This chart to me, looks eerily similar where it's sitting at right now compared to a firm back a few months ago. It looks very similar. So we'll see. Like Pen's like here. Pen, like cut this off like right here, and that's like Pen. That's what Pen's chart looks like the past couple of months. This part from like March on, that's like Pen. So we'll see. I like Pen a lot personally, but I have some calls that go out to next year, so just let it do its thing. That is all. Anything else moving? BBIG over $7 in the after hours. That's key. The $7 is a key level. That was one level that we've been watching that I said, okay, this thing needs to get up over $7, and it didn't look good earlier today, but it held in the low sixes, and now it's up over 7. It looks like it's probably going to go for a bigger move. 720 was the highs in the after hours yesterday, up over 720. This thing probably, let's take a look at our chart here. What do we have? Over 7, we have a 760 area, so I would say 760 could be the next target to watch as resistance, because that was where we hit up on the 27th and we got rejected at that level. So I'd be looking at that and then up into the 8s. But it looks like we're probably going to go for that high right there. Let's take a look. Zoom it out. And yeah, we're looking like we're going to go here. We hit 715. Probably wants to go for a move up to 725 plus, I would say, here in the after hours. It's got the volume. It looks like it wants to make that push. So 5 minutes into the after hours, we're seeing that's one of the bigger movers. We have a couple other ones as well. But we haven't had too many crazy after hours movers, I will say. I've been noticing. So it's been kind of, we haven't had really too many kind of PR. We haven't had like a pure PR play. We used to, back, it still happens, but like back in the day, it was like these pure PR plays where a stock would come out in the morning, everyone's waiting. They drop PR 7 a.m., 7:30, 8 a.m., 8:30, 9:30 sometimes. They drop their PR. Everybody, it's like just like all the sharks attack. Volume comes in depending upon the PR, and a bunch of stocks will come out with their own news. Whatever looks nice, whatever gets the most volume, whatever gets slapped the hardest, that could be the stock of the day, and it could make some crazy wild runs. I haven't seen as much of that lately. Seems like we kind of have more widespread stuff. We got some more pumpy kind of stuff where people have their own theories on this stock, on that stock, and start circling on social media. It starts building volume. Next thing you know, it gets slapped by somebody, bigger, and now all of a sudden it's got some crazy volume. It hits the scanners and it's off to the races, and that's kind of at least a lot of what we've been seeing. It seems like it's what we've been seeing. Now that's the era of social media, right? But you kind of see how this stuff happens, and you have to adapt to it, and it's always changing a little bit over time. So maybe those press release runners aren't going to be as popular anymore. Maybe everyone just kind of likes to find their plays on social media and pump it up, and everyone gets on in and ride it up as high as they can go, ride it to the moon, I guess. I don't know. If we continue to see that, then that's kind of where the market's gone for a lot of these penny stocks. And so there you go. The backsides of those are pretty intense in terms of downside. And you saw we had on DATS today, you had CEI's backside with the short report. BBIG had a pretty nasty backside the past month, although now we're watching it again as it's kind of curling back on up to the upside. So you kind of have, there's a lot of ways to play it. A lot of people who like to only play the long side, people like to play the short side on the back side of the trade. Everyone kind of reaches peak euphoria, everybody's in, and everyone thinks it's going to keep going higher, is when it's like, okay, now it's not, and then the panic sellers hit. Everyone's like, wait a second, dip buyers become pop sellers, and you kind of have that whole backside to play. So there's so many ways you can trade them. The only problem with that is sometimes they're more expensive because you got to borrow. So it's like, there's all little kind of aspects, different strategies and styles. BBIG is still trying to get up there. We have a wall at the 720. It's like 16,000 share seller roughly is sitting at that 720. Here we go. Let's see if we can break it. So right-hand side here, I know it's small, it's time and sales. This is showing you guys all the orders going through. And then the order book level 2, this is level 2, showing you essentially beyond just the bid and the ask. It's showing you deeper than the front bid and the ask that you'll see on most platforms. You're going to see deeper. I think level 2 is like $2 a month. And then national best bid and offer is $10 a month. You don't need it, but I got it. It's like, $12 a month. Why not? Get the best information when it comes to, level book, the level 2, the order book and that stuff. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. And I think it's useful, right? You don't need it, but you know, if you're more, it's probably more important if you're a day trader to be watching level 2, to be watching time and sales, to be watching all that stuff. For me, for swinging, I probably don't need it, but oh, look at that. Look at that. NSPR, I just got filled. I got filled on some shares. I got another 100 at the 97. 397. I'm going to set some more. I'm going to buy, like, I'm just going to set these things down and see if we get hit. And, you know, I'll slowly be buying this thing. This has been a fun stock. I mean, we'll see. Maybe, you know, eventually, you know, they'll probably do an offering at some point. I don't think they need to. They have so much cash right now. I don't think they need to do an offering. But if they do, that tells me a lot about them. And I'm like, okay, screw you guys. But this is one that I've played multiple times. If you go back over the past couple of months, you have to go back to like, yeah, I've been playing it a bunch. I was in July. I was in this thing. I took profits here on this move up into the 6s in July. I think I was like on a plane. I remember I was like, oh shoot, I'm not gonna be able to, you know, I didn't get the top. I didn't sell the top. Okay, whatever. I sold up in the 5s and some 6s, but I didn't sell enough. And then I held the rest of my shares that I had an average in the 4s. And then I bought some more in the 3s. Sold this little pop up here as it popped up here to 5 again. Bought some back in the 3s. Sold some more on a push up. They had some patent news. Sold some more around 5. Rebought recently. I was rebuying in the 3s, just under 4, and it popped up here to almost 5. I sold some up in the mid to upper 4s, and now I'm going to rebuy in the 3s. It's just going to be. It's literally like this. This has the makings. If this ends up going on a decent run at some point, this has the makings to be one of the stocks that I probably, you know, make the most money on in the account. So we'll see. We will see. Let's go back to BBIG. Where is it? Is it pushing up still? BBIG. 710. So it didn't break yet. It got up there. It got close. It got, you know, 1 cent away. It didn't break that level. GWH. Crazy runner. GWH. Let's pull it up. It was a wild play. This is the theme, right? These like, are these SPACs? I guess these are SPACs, right? I'm not even sure, right? These are at least were SPACs that merged and then they sold off, and then at the bottoms of those sell-offs, these things are running. This thing went wild. So that's what you're seeing, right? The same thing with JSPR today, same idea. And then the RDW, same thing. So it shows you like a theme, right? When the theme hits, you know, there's a lot of opportunities. You can always go find the sympathy plays, and that's why I would recommend, if you ever notice the themes hitting, like, oh, this is doing this, like, you know, let's say cannabis stocks or EV stocks or these stocks. Find the ones that no one has hit yet, that haven't run. Maybe they're up a little bit, because, you know, it's difficult to find the bottoms. But find those stocks first. If you find those first, there are massive opportunities for that. There really are. Let's see. GMBL. Let's take a look at some of these after hours movers. We have GMBL is getting a little bit of a push. Let's go to Seeking Alpha and see if we got some news on some of these things. GMBL, what do we got? It's an online gaming or gambling, right? Oh, they report their earnings. Revenue's up 63%, 16.8 million in revenue for the first fiscal year. Okay, cool. Let's take a look. What their market cap and stuff is. So GMBL is a 145 million market cap. We have, what's a float roughly? Free float of 16.4 mil. So it's a decently low float. It can move, but it's not a super crazy mover. SLGG also must have had their earnings as well. I think it's also the similar sector. SLGG, no, they didn't. Maybe it's just moving alongside of GMBL, at least for now. What else? Anything else moving in here? Nothing really crazy. We have HBP. This thing is up 16%. That's the biggest mover. It's not really anything crazy. Not many massive movers in the after hours. And that's what we've been noticing. We just haven't been seeing too many big movers in the after hours. BBIG is trying to go over 720. I think this can go to 760. And then, you know, reassess from there. That's a resistance point that'll watch. 760. That's what I would be looking at. Let's tell. Intel is one that I definitely remember from a couple weeks, months ago. It's been a solid trender. Look at this. Energy play. Natural gas. Okay, natural gas has been up super high too. This is one that's holding up in the 350-ish area. If it can hold this level, the 330s, then I think it can get a nice move to 4+ again. Seems quiet. Seems fairly quiet. Interesting. Let's see how the SPY is handling the after hours. Not really making much moves. Push up into the close, but not really doing too much. So that's it. That's really it. I mean, there's not much else to talk about, to be honest. We talked about a lot earlier. BBIG is the one interesting play that I think if it goes over the 720, it can make a move to 760, potentially some more. So we'll see how that one holds up and pushes up further in the after hours. TTOO. What do I think of that? Let's take a look. This was on my watch list, if I recall. It is not anymore as I just look over to the left, or the right. Let's see. It's a similar play to a lot of what's I think we're going to see some big moves on. This one down here hit some bottoms in the 80s. If it holds the low 80s, it could be a spot to maybe that's your risk. If you get in here, your risk is 83.50, 83.5. We have a 146 million market cap. I don't know how much cash they have. I'd check on that. I check on their upcoming catalyst for Q4. But this chart is setting up for a nice move. Now, like you see the crazy moves we saw back in January and February. Now, I mean, this is like abnormal. This is not usual, but that provides range. It provides an eye. People look back to the left. Oh, this stock was trading there. It can let people. It can draw in some more people chasing. Right. So if you think about it, if you're going to grab this thing under 90 cents, a realistic target could be up here to the 200 SMA, which is a good target to have for a lot of these, for a lot of news plays, for a lot of penny stocks. It could be a good target for a spike up to that level. That's 61%. You're not going to get super caught up in this thing going to 3, 4, 5, whatever. Take your profits here at that 200 SMA or take a good chunk off there. That's a good risk reward. I think it's a solid risk reward. I'll add it to the list just because. Why not? One that's on the list is RMED. RMED is a super thin one. It's a super high short percentage stock, or at least it has been. Down here, it could be an opportunity. I mean, it did have I want to check back to the left and see what happened here on the 16. It was an offering. It did an offering back here in August, maybe. But if it holds up here in like the $3 range, this could be a nice move to 4 to 5 on a spike. 450 could be a good target to have. And, 200 SMA up here towards 475 could be a good target to watch on RMED, I think. Clove. Let's take a look. Clove. Clove is one that is probably coming back down, right? Where is it at? Oh, it's curling. It hit this bottom right here. I had the $7 support. Nice. It hit that level. It's curling. I kind of like it under $8. Down from 8 to like 650 is a decent ad zone. We can drop one more line here. Down here to like 650-ish area. Under 8 could be a good ad zone for, selling up towards 10+. This could be like kind of your rinse and repeat, on Clove. It's been pretty fun to trade like that. I know personally, I think I was in once or twice, but I definitely haven't been watching it as of late. But interesting enough, Gmbl is up now. Look at Gmbl is pushing in the after hours. This thing is up 11%. Pretty nice little move. Gmbl daily chart here. Wow, it has range. Wow. Look at this. Look at how hard this thing sold off, though. This is wild. I mean, this thing sold off. Now, I mean, a crazy run is a crazy run, but look at it. This is a nasty slope. If you were holding this thing up here from like the 16s, this thing went sub 7 in a couple months. So it just shows you it shows you, again, right, that there's so many ways to do stuff. If you notice stuff that seems to be super overextended, if you can find it that has, fairly cheap borrow rates in terms of, shorting it, there could be some really good, short swings. It's something that I'm probably going to test out into next year. If we do get a good run, or if we get a couple stocks that go kind of wild that I think, are really overvalued fundamentally, if I can find some or snag something, maybe not the exact top, the peak, but if I can get something and take it down, 10, 20, 30% on a swing for a couple weeks, couple months, and kind of just not have to worry about it, it's interesting. It could be something that, I dabble into, and we'll have to see. Probably small size, probably very small size. because again, you can get squeezed out, and who knows, maybe that stock, that'll become the next short squeeze play, and then you'll be like, oh man. So it's an idea though that I want to at least test. I haven't really swung anything short outside of getting annihilated. Now it was still a small size in past months, but I tested out a lot of stuff, day trade ideas, even some of these overnight shorts. I tested out a lot of things, and I found a lot of stuff that doesn't work, at least for me, or just doesn't work in general. It just isn't good risk reward trades. So it's helpful. It's always good. Oh, SoFi I like a lot. I think SoFi is one that I think is just a set and forget. I've said that, many times in the past months, back when it was down in back when it was up, or back when it was up in the 20s, back when it was down in the 15s. I don't care. It was like, hey, comes back down. This is a decent buy. Now it's holding the trend. It's pushing back up. It looks really good. It could probably go for a pullback, probably. But I think SoFi is like a $30 to $50 stock, maybe 50 plus, in a couple of years, fairly easily. I think it shouldn't be a problem. This is one that I would put in the IRA, make it a Roth IRA, buy some, SoFi, and just forget about it for a couple of years. Now, don't put your entire IRA into this, but have some sort of diversification. Buy a good chunk into like an S&P ETF, like SPY. Buy SPY with a fat chunk of your IRA, and then take a piece and buy some SoFi, buy like a Tesla, buy something like that you kind of have faith in long term, that could beat the markets, but is not going to be like I need to watch every 2 seconds every single day. It's going to pull back. If it pulls back, I'll buy some more, and that's kind of your thought process on that. I think these are going to be decent plays to outperform the market pretty well going forward. Grom, let's see. I don't know if I like this one. I haven't looked at the chart. Let's take a look though. My guess is I'm not going to be a fan. I'm just not a fan because it popped up, pulled back. I mean, if it holds $4, it's good. I mean, I would say if I'm going to be in, I'm going to be in risking $4 for a bigger move. Sure, maybe it goes again. It's been one of those. This has been kind of holding up, so it could be trapping a lot of shorts for sure. I'm not going to argue with that, but for me, risk reward is not ideal here. Ideally now, but what again on Grom did we see? Final flush. It was trying to hold up in the twos, trying to hold up in the upper twos. And then we go from 260s down to sub 2 in a matter of like 2 weeks, and then the run. So you see how this is the chart setup that I want you to be looking for on other stocks. It could be anything. It could be, and then look into the stock, look into the history. What's going on here? Is there any news that's driving this little pullback, these hard pulls? Did they have cash? How was their last earnings? This is something to be watching. If you're paying attention to that, there could be some really good opportunities across the board and a lot of names in the coming weeks. We're noticing this happens. This is happening all the time on a lot of these recent runners, a lot of them. Same as what was one? RDW we were looking at? RDW? Same thing. This thing pulled back sub 9 and then ripped to 12 plus. These are the types of charts you want to be looking at, these hard pulls. And if you can look into the stock, you have reason to believe that this is undervalued to some degree, or it's a lower float. These are opportunities, I think, across the board. So that's what I'd be looking at. Core, KORE. Interesting. This is the same type of idea here. Look at this. So this thing got ripped down. Now I don't know. Maybe it could be. This could be a subpar company. Who knows? I don't know. But Alfred. That's where I used to live. Alpharetta, Georgia. I'm looking at the address of the company. Technology equipment. Interesting. But hey, if it holds in the 6 area, this could be one that rips right back up. Boom. 10 plus in the coming days. This could be it's one to have on the watch list. I think it's actually a one to definitely have on the watch list, for sure. Got a little volume at the end of the day. It could be a little sign for a pop into the next couple days this week. But it fits the same theme, right? So it was a SPAC, I believe, that got hammered post-merger, right? And now you're looking at the opportunity for the rip back up. So fits the same theme of the runners we've been seeing. NNVC, I'm gonna wrap things up soon. NNVC, look at that, nice day today. I don't like buying the spikes, but nice day for sure. This thing has some range. I'd say up to that 5. If it gets over 550, and then it's probably got to get $6 every 50 cents here at this point. But again, look at the history, look at the chart. You know, every time this thing spikes, it has a series of days where it pulls back pretty hard. So make sure you're locking in gains along the way up. I don't, personally, I'm not taking a swing position here. Just how I'd like to buy the bottoms of stuff and be patient and wait. But this could be a nice little runner in the coming days, and then eventually could be a pullback play. I'm going to add it to my list so I'm watching, and then we'll see. Let's take a look. I'm curious, what's the short? What do they have on this? So it's a 14% borrow rate. So that's actually pretty cheap. So I'd be interesting to see how this goes. This could be a squeezer tomorrow. And then eventually this thing probably, the history tells you it pulls back. But again, that history of this thing popping and dropping could be the reason why it doesn't fall off and it doesn't drop this time, because it could trap a lot of shorts who think it's an easy short right back down to, let's say, $4 in the coming days or weeks. But next thing you know, this thing kind of builds. It holds key levels, and it keeps going higher. Traps a lot of shorts and can really squeeze out, maybe even go up towards that $7 to $10 range. It wouldn't be out of the question if it really traps a lot of shorts. VIAC, I think VIAC is something I wouldn't really worry too much about. Look at this consolidation. It's just sitting here. I'd buy some leaps. I'd go onto the option chain probably, and if I was going to trade it, I'd go out to like January 2023, something like that. I'd look at like the 35s or 30, or even 32s. Some in the money calls that I don't have to really worry too much about the downside as much, right? I'd buy some in the money calls and I'd ride it up, or I'd ride it for the next year and a half and then see where we're at. I think you can probably buy shares here. This is one that like everybody thought was an obvious rebound play. Okay, it's going to go back up to like $60 and be a nice rebound, but it just, because everyone thought it was an obvious rebound, it just has not moved. It's just consolidated. It got close, tried to go up here in June, and then it fell back off. But it's got some good support here down around this 37 range, 38. So I think it's a decent idea. OPAD, and then we'll wrap things up. OPAD. Yeah, another one. Look at this. This thing, same theme, right? Same exact theme of the ones of some of the runners we've been seeing lately. Ripped up here 20. Now it's down sub 10, right? Post SPAC. And now we'll see what happens. This could be one to watch. I would have that one on your watch list if we see the runners that we've been seeing the past couple of days continuing to keep up. That said, let's take a look. Let's last check here on GMBLs. Holding up nice. So maybe the esports and online gambling plays get hot again. We'll see. I think Penn's one of the bigger names. DraftKings. We have ELYS is one that I have on my list. I've been in and out a couple times. I like it a lot. I think it's holding up really nice in the mid to upper fours. I think it's going to be a nice move for a bigger move up. We'll see. That's at least where I have some money here at. And that said, I'm going to wrap things up. So appreciate you guys for tuning on in. If you want to go back, this will stay up on the channel. You can go back to the beginning, watch from the beginning. It's been almost about an hour. So thanks so much, guys. Hit that thumbs up button if you're new. Consider subscribing. Check out some recent videos we have past couple days, some good stuff. And stay tuned for Saturday's video. We're going to update the portfolio, how we fared this past week, all that stuff coming up on Saturday's video. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.